Lockdown restrictions are easing and many of us will be going back to a different type of interactive and more social life, and a lot of people are feeling fearful and anxious about that. In this video I will present 5 tips for dealing with it, some from a mental health expert and then possibly some of my own tips which I'll be basing on nothing but sheer instinct and intuition. How are you feeling? Fearful and anxious? A report by the American Psychological Association found that nearly 50% of Americans say they're anxious about resuming in-person interactions, while 36% of British people are uneasy about returning to normal life, according to Anxiety UK. Although maybe, who knows how Anxiety UK conduct their research, it could be itself a jittery and nervous process. I'm mucking about, I'm being light. Why wouldn't you be frivolous and light in this peculiar time? Me, I must say, my personal circumstances, familial and financial, have meant that the lockdown has been a manageable situation. Also, I'm a member of addiction support groups that mean that I'm able to get some mental health support through community, which I personally, and I know a lot of other people, depend upon. I think, in a way, one of the key points to this is that we are adaptive. Human beings are adaptive. The society, the civilization, the lifestyle that we'd adapted to previously wasn't natural, was it? It's not natural to cram yourself into trains and public transport, or to spend hours in a car each day, or to manage all your emotions by consuming products. And even though there have been many negative consequences, both medical and financial, over the course of this pandemic, there are probably positive side effects as well. People spending more time together, people being able to reflect. I'm not seeking to diminish, of course, the negative consequences that many people will have experienced, but the fact that people are anxious about going back to, inverted commas, normal life is an indication that there have been some things about this change that has been, if not beneficial, then, I don't know, somehow favourable. I don't like that much being forced into social situations. I don't like being around crowds. There have been aspects of the solitude and monasticism that I've enjoyed. For one thing, it's given me time to reflect on what kind of life I want to live and what kind of person I want to be. At the end of this, we're going to give you some tips to handle any anxiety you might feel, so there's some practical and helpful take-home, not just analysis of why this might be happening. One thing I think is worth bearing in mind is, for a long time we've been living in social situations that are not in harmony with our evolution. Whether or not you believe in some divine, universally correct way of living, we are evolved to live in tribes of 75 to 150 people in collaborative, purpose-led lives, i.e. the purpose of finding, hunting, storing, eating food, finding shelter. This is what we're evolved for, and in evolutionary terms it's the blinking of an eye since we lived in those conditions. Since agriculture, industry, and the many great waves and revolutions that have changed for better or worse our culture, we've become further estranged from our, if not inherent nature, our evolved nature. My feeling is that, personally, that we ought to be using this time not to think how do we best get back to normal, when normal contained so many injustices, so many challenges, so many infringements and impediments to our nature. We should be looking at how can we organise society in a way that is conducive to our evolved nature, living in smaller communities where we're interconnected, we align with nature, both inner and outer, and form purposeful, cooperative relationships with one another. Not fetishise a return to a time when we could spend all our time gazing up at mall ceilings, wandering vacantly around shopping centres, staring dumbly at screens. This isn't what we should be aspiring to. That's the objectives of external systems, not the objectives of, if you can refer to nature as a kind of objective, in that it appears to be striving, in that it appears to be moving. Consultant psychologist Dr. Eleanor Turini said, "There's a sense that we're in a safe bubble and we might feel exposed in coming out of it. If you do feel exposed, here are 5 easy to follow tips from a clinician that we'll look at together and see if they might help us." 1. Set daily goals. If you find it difficult to concentrate, set small, achievable targets for yourself. Now that, for me, I'm a 12-step recovery guy. Living one day at a time is always sensible. It's never wise to project into the future and imagine what it's going to be like going back to life. Wait and see. Try it first before making any assumptions. So setting small daily goals, or just living a simple life in manageable chunks, the chunks that you'll be living in moment by moment, seems sensible to me. Share your worries. Telling someone how you can feel can make a difference, even if they can't change what you're experiencing. again, in 12-step philosophy and ideology, we belong to communities. I shared at the beginning of this, I'm fortunate enough to belong to addiction support groups that enable me to have regular contact, albeit at safe distance, with people that share my condition, so I can talk about what I'm going through psychologically, spiritually, mentally, physically, in my familial relationships, in my working life, and I get the opportunity to talk to mentors. That, I would say, is helpful. But these systems, why they're useful to me, and why I know a lot of people in recovery have had an easier time than others during this pandemic, is because there is an inbuilt system that is connected to acceptance, surrender, gratitude. One elder friend of mine, and I mean elder in a sort of tribal sense, he said to me, don't focus on what you can't do, focus on what you can do. Instead of saying we can't go here, we can't go there, focus on, well, look at the things we are able to do. This I thought was a very positive piece of spiritual wisdom. Practice acceptance. There's a lot beyond your control right now, and that can be difficult to accept. So practicing acceptance and self-compassion may help to let go of the stresses you can't control. Interesting that all these secular tips from a medical expert are also found, and prior, just to due to the nature of chronology, in spiritual and theological practices, rather than sort of secular psychoanalytic and mental health practices. All these ideas, share, focus, all these things, these are sort of spiritual ideas, or at least were framed as spiritual, perhaps just due to the way that, you know, we've evolved and the way that language has changed. Allow yourself to grieve. It's important to give yourself permission to have the feelings you do, to feel worried about your own health and the health of those around you, and also about feeling like trapped, and also to feel feelings of strong mistrust and like that you don't necessarily accept and understand the way that things are at the moment. I think it's good as well to spend time around like-minded people where you can safely talk about those things. Finally, this mental health expert said, add exercise to your daily routine, even if it's just a walk outside. A change of environment will help you get some fresh air. Well, that's good. I would like to add to those 5 tips. Think about someone else that you can be useful to and help, and all the better if it has no positive blowback on you, i.e. it's not like someone who's a sort of a potential wealthy benefactor down the road who might give you the keys to a chocolate factory. Much better if it's someone that you helping them, no one will ever know about it. I would also suggest regular prayer and meditation. Prayer and meditation means that you cultivate an aspect of yourself that's not locked to your daily life and practices externally. So all things can change, as all things must change, but you have some sense of, if not permanence, then continuity, because you have a practice that is continual. Me, if there's a lockdown, meditate prayer. Not a lockdown, meditate prayer. Always meditate prayer, because I need to have connections in my life that are not about other people, other people's judgments, external things, things that can change all the time, status symbols, all those things that we're told are culturally important that were stripped back necessarily. See, the problem of the lockdown was that we've all been trained to live as obedient little consumers. So, of course, we were able to continue to consume, notably through Amazon. We were able to continue to watch products on our endless screens, but we weren't able to conduct the rituals of purchase and consumerism, or the rituals of deadening the old senses through booze. I would say the more you cultivate practices and experiences that are somehow unhooked from the dominator culture, the better you will be. And again, these are simple things, ideas that are found everywhere and are even repackaged and reiterated here. Service, communication, kindness, purpose, live in the moment, prayer, meditation. Looking at what you can change and changing that. These are all simple ideas that will be beneficial. So there's 5 tips from a mental health expert, a few tips from me. Your world, to a degree, is within your control. Your reality is, to a degree, determined by your attitude. I recognise there are very, very powerful external influential factors. No one's debating that. What we are discussing is ways that you and I can feel better about this world, because I have seen, even recently, how much people are suffering, how people feel pushed down by the heaviness of our personal and social circumstances at the moment. For me, the only thing that I can take from this that is immune to external influences is cultivate your spiritual life in whatever way you can. Prayer, meditation, kindness, compassion. Be collegiate and form alliances with other like-minded people. Try not to spend too much time building the burdens of yourself. These principles work in a lockdown, out of a lockdown. The fear and anxiety you feel is normal. Change is a frightening thing. But these simple steps and procedures, if practiced in your own life, will be useful. If you've enjoyed that little video that I just made there, why don't you like it and subscribe and comment? I communicate in the comments. If you want to learn more and hang out and do a Zoom call with me, for example, join my mailing list. Go over to russellbrand.com. I send regular bulletins and opportunities for us to hang out live. And soon, hopefully, please God, they will be actual live experiences that we can have together. If you're watching this on Instagram, you might want to go over to YouTube and subscribe to Awakening with Russell Brand and my main YouTube channel so that you get this content unexpurgated and free continually, and you'll be notified for it. Remember my Luminary podcasts, Under the Skin, where I talk to some pretty powerful and influential guests, are available if you want to become a Luminary subscriber. And now I do Above the Noise, a guided meditation podcast at a rate of 1 a week. There is a small fee for joining Luminary. If you can afford it, then get it. It's worth it. If you can't afford it, I will continue to provide free content such as this for as long as I can. And why would there be an obstacle to that? I hope you're well, and I hope you fare well in these changes.